Hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Bernita Howard, the founder of Breaking the Silence on Domestic Violence. We come to you tonight to bring you our life stories, bringing awareness on domestic violence. As we always say, right now we're in the middle of a pandemic with COVID-19, but domestic violence has always been a pandemic that nobody want to talk about. We are all blessed that we are here. We have triumphed through our troubles and our tribulations, but nevertheless, we are here. Just a little bit about who I am. I am the founder of Breaking the Silence. I am an author. I'm a motivational speaker. I am a minister. I am a mother, a wife, and a grandmother. All I enjoy, but what I enjoy the most is being an advocate to help those who are in need to understand you don't have to stay there. I was blessed that I'm able to tell my story and instead of my family on life or ID telling my story for me. So I'm going to let these beautiful ladies introduce who they are, just a little bit about who they are and why they're here tonight. We're going to start with you, Miss Renee.
Thank you, Verdita, for the platform, and lovely to meet all of you ladies. And my name is Renee Brathwaite. I live in Southern California. I'm a mom of two. I'm a small business owner. I was teaching for the past 15 years. 10 of those years were in United Arab Emirates in Abu Dhabi. I love the teaching profession. I never thought I would be sharing my story, but that's life sometimes, so I'm excited to share and help anyone that's out there who is currently in that position or knows someone that in the position. So thank you so much for the platform, Vernita.
Awesome. Miss Rhonda.
Hi, my name is Rhonda. I am operator of of reawakening. In addition to that, I am an advocate for domestic violence. So that's, I feel like I'm echoing.
You are.
Okay, so let me leave out. Come back.
Okay. While we're waiting on her to come back in, Shayna, is that how I say your name?
Shayna.
Shayna. And Shayna, can you
Yes,
introduce yourself to the audience for us?
yes, absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Shayna Street. I am 27 years old. I'm a survivor of domestic violence. Myself, I am a mother of a superhero. He's autistic. He's the love of my life. He's brings so much joy to me. I am the director of victim services for North Community Street Team. As a victim advocate, we work around victim of crime compensation and trauma informed care. I am also an author of Hey God, Did You Get My Message, which is a book about my life story of just surviving some of these triumphs that we're going to dig deep into today. And I'm also the playwright and director of Hey God, Did You Get My Message stage play, which is a gospel stage play that I transitioned from my book into a stage play to be able to use different avenues to reach survivors and victims of crime. So, thank you so much for having me and inviting me to this space, and I look forward to digging deep into this work.
Awesome. So we're gonna dig straight in. So domestic violence is intimate partner abuse, where a lot of people just look at the physical part of it, but there are so many different forms of abuse that you can go through when you are dealing with domestic violence. Okay, so we got Miss Rhonda before we dig into it. Okay, Miss Rhonda, introduce yourself.
Okay, I do apologize about that. My name is
That's fine.
Rhonda Nixon. I'm from Wilson, North Carolina. I am the owner and operator of Reawakening Life Coaching LLC. Um, uh, what I do is help people get unstuck. And so, one of the ways that I do that is through helping them go through the phase of domestic violence. As a advocate for domestic violence, my center focus is youth, but I do adults as well. So that's one of my passions. And so thank you, Ms. Benita, for this opportunity to be able to present with these young ladies.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies, so much. So we're gonna dig right into it. I'm gonna give just a brief of domestic violence, but if you ladies would join in and tell the people what domestic violence is to you. But the how can I say, the Webster Dictionary says domestic violence is intimate partner abuse, where it includes any physical. And when I say intimate partner, that is somebody that you have been involved with. So I want to make it clear. But domestic violence have many forms. You have the physical, you have the financial, you have the emotional, you have the psychological, you have the mental, you have the spiritual. And a lot of people don't want to talk about it. I was introduced to it from my first husband, but I never seen it in my home. Statistics say that it takes um, no statistics say that most people who develop go through domestic violence has seen it in their homes. For me, I never seen it. It also say that it's from a single parent home. I don't think they dug deep when they done statistics because um, I'm from a two parent home. How about you, ladies?
Also, childhood was both my parents, and then my mother became a single parent when I was going into high school.
Miss Rhonda?
So I was two-parent home, but then, as she stated, Renee stated, my parents separated, never divorced, but separated.
Miss Street?
Yes, I was actually raised by my grandparents at first, where it wasn't prevalent in the home, and then by my mom, and she was a single parent at the time.
Okay. So as we can see, it can happen. Those that go through, there are different levels to it. And for me, as I stated, my parents was together until God called my mom home. Um, so let's dig deep into our situations. Do any of you remember, like, because we're gonna relive some things, but that's the only way to truly bring awareness to anything. Um, for me, I didn't see any warning signs. Did you guys see the warning signs and overlook them? Or let me say it this way: in the beginning, I didn't know what the warning signs were. So to me, it seemed like I didn't see it because I want to rephrase this because when I think back, I actually seen them. I just didn't accept it, because I was so busy. Um, I was so busy trying to mimic what my parents had and my older sister had, with stability in the home, making sure my children had two parents in the home. I was busy trying to mimic that. But there were, times that he would, get angry. Um, there was times that, I thought that it was love. Oh, I only have to sit home, but I had to have dinner done by the time he get home. If he called and requested something else, I had to have that done. Um, the thing for me, I wasn't, and a lot of girls would be like, "Oh, that's so good. Your husband pays our bills." Baby, I work. I didn't even have control of my own. And guys, I'm gonna keep it real with you. I didn't have control of my money. But I felt like the bills were paid, and I didn't realize that when he allowanced me $250, when he allowanced me, that was abuse. But we're gonna dig deep into it because a lot of people don't want to talk about the financial abuse. But I will say to anybody watching, baby, know how to manage your funds. Don't allow anybody to control you that way because you go out and work. I was working 40 hours. Good job. But didn't have any control of the funds. So you ladies want to, whoever want to start first, what signs did you see but you overlooked them?
I can.
I think for me, when it first happened, I think
Miss
my
Street,
daughter
you're
might have
on
been.
mute.
I think. Can you hear me, Bernita? I was just saying that for me, it happened. I think my daughter was maybe she was newborn. So when it first happened, I just thought like I'd never seen anything like it. I was like, what the heck? It just shocked me, and I was like, I thought, okay, this was probably was likely my fault, or something. I just thought I took the ownership of it being my fault, and I just was like, okay, that's. I'm sure it won't happen again, and that's where I was. I was owning that it was my fault and that I was the cause of it, and I just like let it go. That was my story, and little did I know there was more to follow after that.
Right.
For
Miss
me,
Nixon
oh
or Miss Street,
yeah.
whichever.
For me, I overlooked the drinking. The drinking was definitely a sign. Him not being able to remember certain things that happened the day before, like often. And what got me was that he didn't like really drink often, but he wasn't able to hold his liquor. So it was things, he can drink a little bit of wine, and it was easy for him to forget. And he didn't understand his temper and things like that. And I used to overlook that, like, oh, it's just the drinking, things like that, and making excuses for him. And being young didn't help it either because I got married when I was 20 years old. So me being young and also having other previous experience of forms of abuse or violence, I was already vulnerable going into the situation, not yet healed. So there was a lot of
Mhm.
things that I was still looking for at such that young age that I didn't identify with until I was older. That stuck out for me. So then in the moment, no, I didn't see some of the warning signs, but I do know some of the excuses that I made.
And I would say for me, yeah, there were warning signs. I was blind as my other sisters just spoke about. Uh, you know, for me, it was more of like a church relationship. And so he's like, girl, that's a good man. You better not let him get by. And I'm like, okay, didn't know. He a crazy. He's crazy. But so just having that, just trying to, feeling that, and then just to be honest, because you said we're being transparent here. When you get a certain age, you think about the white horse and
Mhm.
like a Cinderella. You think at a certain age you should be married, you
Mhm.
should be having kids, and so you tend to settle for that attention or just having a man or a companion. So that yeah, so red flags were there. I just ignored because I thought he was a project. He was more so of a project to fix.
And
Hmm.
I'm glad you said that because as women, a lot of times we see the signs, or when you first get that little food, somebody always come to you and be like, "Girl, he done this to such as oh, that's her." You know, um, oh, he ain't gonna do me that way. She must want taking care of her business or whatever. And we think that we can. So the first flare out, it's like, oh, okay, well, what did I do wrong? You know, um, oh, I'm gonna help him out. We're gonna work on this. We're gonna go to counseling. Why do I gotta go to counseling if he's the one with the issue? Or why do he gotta go to counseling if you're the one with the issue? But we don't want to talk about that. So as women, why do we think that we can fix someone who's already has issues?
Because that's just how we are. We are fixers all the time, trying to fix everybody's problem but our own. And you think that you can help somebody. You really
Yeah.
think that, you know, you're in this and you're just like, I'm going to make it work. And that's another thing. You push through trying to make it work when the other person is going to kill you. So it's like when you have that wake up moment, it's like, I got to get out of this situation. And it's only until then, because like I said on my live on my page, no one would have told me to leave. No one could not have told me to leave. I had to make the decision. And even at that decision, it was hard for me. But I remember the first time I was like, yeah, I can fix this. Oh, we think we're the greatest counselors. And we think that even going to even counseling, we didn't even get to the counseling part. I just thought over time this would pass. That's where I was. And then it just looked at me. Can I live through this? My daughter might have been like 5 at the time. I can't remember her age, but can I do this for so many more years? And the answer kept coming back to me. No, you really can't. But I pushed through. So we have this problem of thinking that we can fix something when we totally cannot fix another person. It's impossible. So
I
I
definitely
say that to
agree.
say, like, you have to, it's a personal decision for every woman
Yeah.
out there. A friend of mine years ago asked me what his mother stayed in a relationship that was broken and everything. He's like, what made you? I said it was a personal decision. That was it. I didn't want my daughter seeing any more of anything, any more of it. And I didn't want to feel any more of it. So and it was a conversation. He said to me, he's like, you're smarter. He was saying something about how smart I am. And it was like the light bulb moment to get the hell out of here. And we had a new home just built, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. I mean, it was an amazing house. And I was like, I'm leaving all this shit. I will get another one. I will get another one. I left everything he gave me, everything. And I walked away. And I told him, I cannot live with you any longer. And I would not do it. It took everything in me. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I mean, this is not a healthy relationship for my daughter to be in. And not even my daughter, for myself. I can't do this to myself. So
Mm-hmm.
that's when I was like, I left that home. I rented a 1 bedroom. I rented a room, not even a 1 bedroom. I rented a room. And I stayed in that room until I finished my teaching license, got that teaching license test done, and I moved on. And I was able to have her go to his house and things like that. And we did have a conversation. I was like, you know what? I forgive you. I just can never live with you again. I could never be with you again. So that was that was my story. I'm not a fixer. Either you got it together or you don't.
Right.
So sorry.
Well, so, so I don't know if Miss Street, you was about to say something, but one of the things I want to chime in and say is reason why we do feel as though they are projects is because our natural genetics as a woman is
Hmm.
to nurture.
Right.
And so we feel as though we can make everything right. I mean, just add a little love to it, baby. When mama cooking in the kitchen, it's a lot of love. And so we think love, and the Bible says that love has a multitude of sin. But I think sometimes we take that out of context because of the fact that you can't fix anyone that's already
Hmm.
broken.
Right. And
Hmm.
And so, and
nobody can fix you either.
Hmm.
right,
And
right.
a lot of times in Miss Street, you can, after I say this, you can go head on. But a lot of times we're going into relationships already broken.
Mm.
Um, you know, we'll leave one relationship. And for me, I can speak on that. Um, Even after this ordeal, I went to another one, to another one, to another one. And I wasn't healed. I was broken. So I was taking this baggage from here to there to here to there. And I was being I always say it was like I was a magnet to abusers.
Mm.
So it wasn't just one with me. It was a lot of them until one day I was like, I just can't do this anymore. This
Okay.
is too much. And so I stayed to myself for a while. I needed that for me, but I had to I had to work on Vernita. I had to find Vernita.
Yeah.
I was the type I didn't want to be alone. You
Hmm.
know, I just didn't. I'm like, look, guys, you ain't put me here to be by myself. You said you made Adam and Eve. I want my Adam. I want my Boaz. Okay. And I was rushing the process for God. I was like, okay, it's taking you a little bit too long. Let me go ahead and find. And I was getting all Boaz cousins. Go ahead, Miss Street.
Um, I mean, Renee actually started off with what I was going to say. We are, nurturing beings. It's within our nature. And not only that, it's from what we see, our mothers and our grandmothers and our great grandmothers. That's something we see, them do as well. They work for their relationships. They say everything don't come easy, some
Mhm.
things take some work, and especially growing up in a Christian home, you grow up knowing that, in churches, you didn't want to get the divorce. You
Mhm.
wanted to do everything you could, for your marriage. Unless, I mean, even going through the domestic violence, praying and hoping and fasting, hoping that a change is going to take place somewhere in
Mhm.
the midnight hour. And, you have that hope that it's going to happen. And, it doesn't. But, we want to fix other people's because it's something in us that's wanting to be fixed as well. And sometimes
Mhm.
we use that instinct and play it outwards. Sometimes it's not even about the other person. Sometimes it's solely about you. And like you said, we go into these relationships broken, wanting, needing someone to be there because we couldn't be alone. So it wasn't so much about fixing the other person, but doing so much that we could keep them around so they can be a part of what we need. And that was a lot of the things too, is just wanting to keep somebody around. And a lot of women end up cutting off their friends or their family members to they get to a place where they don't even have anyone to call, or not that they don't have anyone, they don't feel safe, or they don't feel like they have that relationship anymore to give them a call. And that's part of abuse too. I mean, that's one of the signs too of having to neglect your friends and your family, because he wants you to stay home, or he don't think they good for you, or things like that. So, you got to keep that in mind as well.
That isolation. Yeah, exactly. Hmm.
And a manipulator knows how to manipulate. They know how to isolate you to make you feel that they are the best person ever for you. Once they pull you away from everybody, they'll say, "Oh, I told you they didn't care," or I told you, I'm the only one that's going to be there for you." Yeah, you pull me away from everybody, or if they call you and he answered the phone, oh, she's busy right now. It's different tactics that people manipulators use, but they know how
Can I
to.
jump in right there, Renita, if I
Yeah.
can? I'm going to cut you off. But those are some of the signs that, especially when you're young or you're just getting into a relationship, that you find cute. Like, oh, he just wanna spend time with me, or he taking charge, girl. Look at him, he taking charge. We look for, especially when you have gone through abuse, you look for that in a man, that leadership, and that. So when a man comes like that, and they intentionally doing it, but you're so vulnerable and gullible and open that you don't even
Mhm.
miss the signs of what he's actually doing.
Right. Renee, one of the viewers asked, how long was it before you left your abuser?
I look at my daughter's age. I get kind of fuzzy with the the years and numbers and stuff. My daughter's about to be 18 now, so I think she might have been. She just finished kindergarten, went to first grade, so maybe 5, 6, around 6, 7. I was with them 7 years, but this is someone I've known for years. We went to college together, so it's not someone I just we've known each other for years. And it just shocked me. And even if when I'm sharing the story and I think back, and I had a lot of love for him. And you know what, um, even in the forgiving part, because actually it took me 2 years ago to really forgive. I actually had to ask God, you're going to have to intervene on this one because I really don't know how. I thought I could forgive, but I had some bumps along the way because I was so
Hmm.
angry, and the resentment of being a single mom and this journey, and that was hard. That I didn't think that I would be in that category, nor did I want to be in that category. So I just had to ask God. I said, I can't do this by myself. And then, so that was like 2, 3 years ago. And um, I, and even, there's a lot to the story, but I think to the point where we came to the forgiveness was the most critical piece for me because I let go. Because before, when I was living in UAE, the memories kept coming back and they kept coming back strong. Like, it's like, and I always say, like, I was like, God left me in the desert to get to the point of forgiving. He wasn't going to let me go from UAE until I could actually forgive myself, the situation, the experience, because I was holding on to so much. And then once I just felt better. I felt so much better. I was like, oh, dang. It was that. And it's still a process. But I I couldn't believe I was in that situation. That was my story. But I'm just glad I got out. I have no regrets about leaving, and I actually don't have regrets about anyone telling me to leave because I had to do it myself. I had to wake up to reality. Like, this is not getting better. It's only going to lead to your death. And that is when I was like, enough is enough. You can have the keys, you can have the house, you can have it all. I do not care. I need to go ahead and take care of myself, and I need to take care of this daughter we have. And that's it. And I told him, I'm going to take care of her with you or without you. And I meant that. And even financial times when it got hard in UAE with the tuition, $5,000, and had to figuring it out, I just had to figure it out. I mean, that's it. But I did get to the point of forgiveness. And I think that was another journey by itself. So,
Okay, so one of the viewers asked, "What are the traumas that you still suffer with today that affect you on a day to day basis?" And I'm going to get each of the ladies to answer this. Um, for me, the hardest thing was this year. Honestly, I have not been in the room with the abuser that introduced me to domestic violence. September the 6th was the first time I've ever been back in the room with him. We have children, and I thought that I was good.
mm,
You know, I was able to speak. The trauma, and this time of the year is really hard for me because my son was beat out of me December the 23rd. So for 21 years, I shut down around December. December was just a month to shut down for me. Um, And when my son would have been 21, was the first time I ever allowed anyone around me. So on a day-to-day basis, I often wonder, like, what would my son have been? Um, where would he be? Um, what type of lifestyle would he had? That to me, that would have been my protector. Even though God blessed me with grandsons, but the trauma that I have is I never got a chance to hold him alive. So the meltdown each month, I mean, each year around December is hard. Um, Another thing that I have to deal with is my grandsons. All of them look like him, all of them. And I remember when my oldest one was born. That is my heart. I love all my grandchildren the same, but they say I make a difference because when he was born, I felt like God was giving me back what he took. You know what I mean? Um, and then a year later, I have another one. So I'm like, okay, God. So now you done gave me three times what I lost. So he's giving me triple of what I lost, but it still never will be the same, because I can't say, when I talk to the boys and talk to my granddaughters about their uncle, it's like, uh, Grandma, why do we have to go put this on a grave? So that's the hardest thing for me, explaining to them why we're going there, who that person is. Um, I also have my stomach. He kicked my stomach after having a baby. So my intestines was ripped. So I always have that. That's not something that will go away. No matter how big I get, no matter how small I get. Those pains will always be there. But that's the trauma that I face on a day-to-day basis. And being an advocate, seeing other women go through it, sometimes it makes you relive the situation that you've been in. Somebody else can speak.
So for me, I guess I'll go next. One of the traumas that I face, and like you, Miss Vernita, you said it. I mean, it's so many,
Mhm.
right? But for me, um, I was actually kidnapped, beaten, and raped by an ex. And so for me, having a 12 gauge shotgun to my head and say, if you holler, I'll kill you. Um, and then to actually drag me on the ground and rape me, that's trauma. And so for anybody to come behind me, like grab my eyes or anything like that, I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm ready to fight because I'm in defense mode. I also have scars all over my body where I was drugged on the highway, like a dog. And so, and some days it depends on the weather. I may walk with a limp. That's because of I jumped out of the car trying to live because my son and my nephew was back in the car. So day to day, I had those traumas, but I am determined not to live in fear. You know, I see some of his family members, out and about. Don't know because he is serving time. Don't know if they will ever try to retaliate. Not sure, but I gotta trust God every step of my life. I can't walk around in fear. At one time I did, but I'm not doing that anymore. So I'll stop right there and I'll let somebody else say because I want to give them an opportunity to speak as well.
I'll go ahead and jump right in. One of the traumas that I have, I mean, like you, Renee, being drugged down the street, like with a bathrobe on and no clothes, like that's trauma. Not being able to drive, in different areas because the experience of the abuse is like prevalent. It's the first thing that pop in my mind. Like I remember when we shared this house. Like I remember we used to drive this way all the time when we lived over here, and things like that. And it brings up so many memories that become overwhelming that you fade out, and sometimes it's your temperament, having anger management. Like I'm very snappy, not, don't want to embrace too much. Like I have a friend that she just comes and gives me hugs all the time because she like, I don't care if you don't want me to touch you, you need a hug. And that has been teaching me to grow, to be able to embrace more because it's hard when you're thinking, especially when it's numerous occasions. I mean, yes, this is a domestic violence awareness event, but not only the domestic violence, but years of sexual abuse as well at a young age. It makes it hard to be able to connect with people. It makes it hard socially to maintain relationships because you become pessimistic of people's motives in your life, and that's draining as well, and that's trauma because you think everybody is out to get you and everybody don't want to see you do well, and it's overwhelming and it's emotionally draining and it's mentally draining, and that's something that we have to deal with too as part of our trauma because we want to be able to have healthy relationships and be able to, communicate and trust. But, at the same time, healing is found where the wound is. There's a gift in the wound. And sometimes it takes going deep in that wound and healing it to be able to, and healing others to be able to heal yourself. Our leader, Akila Sherrills, the director of NCST, he says it all the time. There's healing lies where the wound is. And I live by that. I'm a witness of that, of just transforming from a victim to living victoriously. I speak that and I motivate other victims as well, to, try to make sure that, they seek mental health is important. And going out to seek mental health doesn't make you any less of a person. It's still important and it's needed to be able to heal from those traumas. And I'm complete before we get too much further.
Miss Benita, I think you're on mute. You are on mute, Benita.
Miss Renee.
I think that for me, the trauma was when I saw him after. I would think about some of the worst events in the house. Where he just kept hitting my head, and I thought I was going to die. So, and then I had a conversation, and he asked me why did I leave. I said, for so many instances. And then that night, when I explained to him what he didn't even remember because he was so intoxicated. He didn't remember, and I was like, "How could you not remember?"
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that one, just the thought that he couldn't remember, it stung me in a way that I could not express because I thought, I was like, Lord, if I make it through this night. I don't know how I'm going to make it through this night, but please give me the strength to make it through this night. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes when I would take my daughter to him after everything, um, when I saw him, that stood out to me the most. I knew he was a good father. I knew he wouldn't harm Camille. Honestly, that stood out the most. And even after I would come back to Chicago from UAE, just for, it wasn't often I was able to do that, just because it was just a long trip from another country back to the States. But I wanted to make sure that the two of them had a great relationship. I didn't want to taint that relationship in any way. They were always close. From day one, I told him about we were having a daughter. He was excited. But honestly, that one night I I am surprised I'm here to tell this story. And I am someone who's lived through 9/11, this and that and everything. But that particular experience, wow. For someone who says they love you, you have to be careful who you love. You have to be careful. For any woman out there that feeling like, how can I leave? Find a way. You're going to have to wake up somehow because it doesn't end. It doesn't stop because they target you if they're angry, if they're upset, if they're frustrated. They take it out on one person and it's the person in front of them. And you can't change that. So that trauma lasted years for me. Um, I can't explain that night. It's unexplainable. Um, you would never think, so, this person who's doing this to you. Like, you're allowing this to happen. So yeah.
I could totally relate to you with that when you said he used to drink and not remember he hit you, the next day. That was, a lot of my experiences from, him not remembering the next day. It was like, how don't you remember? And like literally wake up and be like, what happened to your face? And him not know that it was him that did it, or being extremely in fear of how he's going to respond when we're out at gatherings while he's drinking, and just like, okay, here's another night. I remember going down the highway, and he was drinking, and he didn't like something I said, and he grabbed the steering wheel, while we were speeding down the parkway, and that was one of the scariest things of my life. Even to this day, I'm so jumpy in the passenger seat. It's ridiculous. I don't trust no one's driving but mine.
Right.
you know, no one's. I'm not the safest driver either. But if I'm going to go, it's going to be by my own hands. Okay, and but that just not being able to trust anybody to take the wheel, whether fit literally or figuratively. Not being able to trust somebody to take the wheel, and it's hard, and we don't understand how our traumatic experiences actually come into play with a lot of our decision making, and it does. But I'm gonna turn it right back over to you.
Another question from one of the viewers says, did you carry baggage into your very first relationship after leaving your abuser? Or did your first relationship trigger anything of your past? For me, I had never, I dated, I was 17 when I got married. I got pregnant, and I'm a mama and daddy's girl. So like it was easy to convince my parents, like, hey, this is what the Bible said. Like I kind of use spiritual abuse on them, because I'm like, hey, this is what the Bible said, a man and a woman should be married, da da da, whatever. And he asked me, and so I was excited, and I remember my dad walking me down the aisle. He was like, well, you really don't have to go through with it, not, I'm totally behind this, but if this is what you want to do, he was like, because we got to walk past the door, because the way we walked in. And so I was like, no, Dad, let's go ahead, because again, I wanted, what my parents had. And, I just felt like this was going to do. But I can say my next relationship from my first abuser, I took baggage. I took the hurt. I was broken, and I took all that brokenness, and it was like I was vulnerable, so and this guy was a manipulator too. So he like knew it. And at that time, being young, having my own house, da da da, or whatever, and I'm like, oh, you can come see me, and they walking in a new home, completely furnished, dude had nothing to lose, he had everything there to gain. But again, he drunk, and he was drinking or whatever, and then later to find out that he was doing drugs. And because I was never introduced to any of that, I didn't know. So I took baggage from one relationship to the next. So I can't say that about my situation.
I definitely took baggage as well. From a young age, my mother wasn't really around. I was raised by my grandparents. Um, a lot of the things were swept under the rug. What happens in the house stays in the house. A lot of things went unsaid. I had a every other weekend dad. So, growing up, there wasn't too much in the streets that I seen outside of church. Wanting, to being so restricted, in the same sense through with some of the abuses that I carried silently, because what happens in the house stays in the house, especially when
Ooh, I hate that saying.
you have leaders in ministry. And we're taught to, carry these burdens and wait and leave it on the altar and pray about it and things to be healed. But it was a lot of things at a young age that I was still healing through. That as I grew up into my adolescence and my young adulthood, and finally, moving with my mom later in life, in that time, and then being, molested, for a year at 11, 12 years old. So by the time I'm, 16, 17, I'm getting raped at gunpoint in an abandoned, house, in a rooming house that I was staying in, that by myself. 16 years old, going to high school and church. That's all I knew. Church was like, so, it was in me, and it was instilled in me. So even when I lived on my own, I was still going to church, but I didn't know it was because he still had a hold on me, and I didn't understand why until later on. But he was still using me in that time, and I didn't know the things that he was taking me through was to build me for where I am now. And he carried me during that time, and there was a lot of things I took into my relationship when I got married at 20 years old, because there was a lot of things from my youth that were never addressed, that were never healed, that family members ignored, that they forgotten about. So when it even came back up, it's like, what you talking about? Like they didn't remember, and because it's been swept so deep with everything else that's under there, that it never gets addressed. And those things that we take with us, unhealed, unaddressed, unresolved, just waiting. Now you just wanted to be loved. If anybody can hear me, if you can be able to just hear me, that's just what I need. And
Mhm.
you take that into relationships, just wanting somebody to understand you, somebody wanting to understand your story. And that's baggage that's opened up in those relationships, that causes you to be that fixer and that cleanup person, because you got so much of your own that needs to be cleaned up.
Ooh, you said a mouthful there. As women, we are nurturers. We're moms, so we nurture, and we think when we get with him, we can nurture him back to be 100% whole. But we also, so if anybody's viewing, if you got to nurture him, he's already had a mom. And if she couldn't do it, you can't do it. And with these roundtables, I believe in keeping it real. So now we're going to go a little bit deep into, our stories. And I'm going to let Miss Street start. And so there's so many different forms of abuse that you can go through. And as you give us like a snippet of your story, um, and what you learned from it, and have you healed from it? And if so, what steps did you take to start your healing process?
Whew, that's a lot to get into. Let me see. I might address. So let me try to sum it up, bring it, condense it down. Um, my story started off with, like, he would come now, right? If that's my superhero.
You're on mute.
He was very romantic. He was very romantic. It was never always nice, always flourishing with gifts or flowers or anything like that. Things didn't take a change until we got married, like a week after we got married. And he started drinking. I'm like more often, but the week after he got married was the first time like he punched me in my stomach, standing on the corner, like he was already tipsy. We got into an argument, and he straight punched me in my stomach, and I remember like feeling like gutless, like just like breathtaking, away and just stood there. And then while I'm hunched over, I could see him walking away, leaving me there. And me giving him an excuse in that moment of him being drunk as he comes back to apologize and say, I didn't mean to do that. I've been drinking, angry with him in a moment, still in my trauma, going through my trauma at the same time as trying to heal and giving him so many excuses to where it became from him punching me, my stomach and that grew until I was having bruises, going to work with a busted lip or scrape marks on the side of my body from being dragged up my arm, and then being able to even identify it at work, for them to know that these things were going on. Um, it escalated further into him committing a crime that almost got me locked up for 30 years, in interrogation for 22 hours, just being questioned about something that I didn't have any knowledge of, you know, um, them just having, finding my car at the crime scene and that's it. And if had I not worked, this particular day, and I was working my last day I was a manager at Applebee's, and it was my last day because I was starting a new job. And this particular day, the manager had me staying late, like just cleaning, extra duties. Like he just knew I wasn't coming back tomorrow, and my spirit wasn't sitting right because I started to become emotional, but I didn't know why. While I was still cleaning, I didn't know why. And it was in those moments where this incident was taking place and police are everywhere looking for me and things like that, that had I not been at work scrubbing, during those hours, I wouldn't have had no place of escape to say where I was to excuse me from the situation. I could have been in jail right now,
Mhm.
so, just being able to have my life back. It was only my 21st birthday, I remember, and we was arguing about not doing anything for my birthday in that moment. And the argument got so heated where I was literally in fear for my life, my clothes being ripped off in the street, me being punched in my face, people being in the street watching, not looking, not helping, to where I really felt like I wasn't going to live anymore. It's literally packed my bags and just told him like, I wanted to leave. I was ready to go, but it was when he started taking the bags, dumping everything out, maybe telling me I wasn't going anywhere until I felt like I was stuck, like I didn't have any place to go. And about 2 weeks after that, my job was a big part of the process. I was able to go back to him. I knew he was on parole. He couldn't leave the state for another year from that time. So I used that to my advantage. I told him that I had a job opportunity in South Carolina, and I was going to be able to come back and visit every month because the salary was going to be this much. And I was always hardworking. I mean, I always had a job because it was my place of escape. I was a hard worker, a overworker. I would pick up doubles and triples just so I didn't have to go home to the abuse. So being able to use the work came to me at a leverage. They offered me this position to be a trainer. I'm going down. I can come back every month though, just to give him some type of ease that it'll be okay. But I knew once I left, it was going to be over. Like all ties was going to be cut. But I knew I had to do it this way for my own safety if I wanted to be able to make it out alive.
Mhm.
Especially knowing, the previous incident that the cops came to get us, they was investigating us for, which was murder. So I knew that if he can do this to anybody else, he can definitely do this to me. And he used to say things like, I'm going to tie you up in the basement. I'm going to kidnap you. He'll play
Mhm.
games with knives that were, it was scary. That made you think he would make it seem like he was playing, but you would know like it's a little crazy in there somewhere. Like I believe it. And You know, I made a complaint, and he punched me in my face in the middle of the night, like straight out of my sleep, about something that happened at work. We was in the night before. I was working at a supermarket, and these into the supermarket, and they was buying wicks. So guys, they have no idea what they're doing of how to get the formula and things like that. So it was a joke. So I laughed at him, provided customer service, and assisted. He ended up walking in the store, seeing the exchange, but wasn't really present for the communication. By the time we got in the car, he asked me why I was laughing, and you laughing in these guys' face, and just straight pushed my head into the passenger window, like smashing my head into the window. So it was in that moment that I knew that even though I told him that I was leaving in about a month, 2 months, now I had to speed up the process. I had to go. So I ended up calling a friend in South Carolina that was already working with me on the transition, and they was able to get me a Greyhound expedited, ticket for the next couple of days. So I left the car, I left the apartment, I left all of the clothes, I left all of the furniture, I left the title signed over to you. I don't even reach out to me. I don't need it. I had 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. Whatever I was able to carry, that's what I was leaving with. It didn't matter about anything else. I just know I had to get out of there for my own sanity. And it wasn't until moving into South Carolina that my healing process really began, because God had to separate me in order for my healing process to begin. There was no way that I was going to be able to recover or heal being stuck in that process, being stuck in that atmosphere. So he had to get me far away. So I'm in South Carolina, and this is where the transformation really begins for me, of my healing process, of being able to identify what I needed, and starting counseling and anger management to be able to address those concerns on the things that I was dealing with. And Black people think they don't need therapy, but it was the therapist and God that led me all the way through. So we definitely need it, because it's a lot of things that we don't address because we're taught, or from learned behavior that we keep buckled in. And I started writing my book in South Carolina. South Carolina is actually where I published my book. South Carolina is where I went back to school to get my GED. A few months after I got down there, I found out that my high school diploma wasn't accredited. So I went back, got my GED, and then was after getting my GED, with just passing it like right away. That it encouraged me to immediately enroll back in school, where I got my diploma in healthcare management, and then re-enrolling again for my degree in healthcare management. So those were some of the starts of me getting into, and back into myself and what I wanted to do for me, and to how I wanted to prosper. But then in writing my book was where I found the true gift, because I didn't know that telling my story was going to heal so many people. I didn't know, while going through my story, that it was going to be used today to heal so many people. And if I don't take what I went through lightly, I don't regret the experiences that I went through. I'm the director of victim services today because of the experiences that I've, and the trauma that I've overcome. Um, a big part of my healing and self care is definitely church. That has been the major part of my healing process. I couldn't give anything else for regard to that but God Himself. He has been a big part of, keeping me whole during the trauma and abuse, because when there was nothing else, like I said, at a young age, I was still going to church. And that has been my peace in storms in so many ways. But the healing for me came from me running away. And I thought I was running away, but God had me running to my destiny at the same time. And sometimes we're in fear to leave because we're thinking we're leaving something better, but God is really trying to transition us and take us to something better. if we just let them. So a leaving is always the best options, even if we think we leaving millions behind. God is saying He will multiply it, but I don't want to tap into that just yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on.
All right, Miss Rhonda.
Okay, so I kind of mentioned mine's a little bit earlier, so I apologize, but so mom was involved with a relationship. We had broken up, but so mom was like kidnapped, beaten, and raped. I was raped. Actually abandoned me. Well, my son and my nephew, they were in the car, abandoned them in the highway where I was drug on the highway. I was first of all, I was maced in the face. I was drug on the highway, and then beaten and raped. And so that part, the healing. So talk about healing. Healing came. There was so many ways. Like people wanted me to heal their way, like what
Mhm.
kind of healing they had, but I had to walk my own course, and I was bold enough to say, and it's crazy because I think the sister talked about earlier about the church, and while I was sitting here, in a sling and bu- um uh, bruised all up, I still have women that came from the church saying, "Hey, I've been raped, but I didn't say anything." Well, let me just tell you, I didn't say anything either. It was just so bad that the DA said, "Hey, we're gonna charge this joker. You don't got us involved now. You don't call 911. Your family call 911. We're involved." So that's how all of that began. Um, so I think one of the parts of my healing, knowing me, self-identifying what I need to heal. God was definitely my source, but in addition to God being my source, seeking counseling. And I think, as the sister stated earlier, with Black community, it's almost like a stigma. If you tell somebody you're getting therapy, or if you're getting counseling, it's like, you, girl, you crazy. No, you crazy if you don't. If your heart is sick, what do? You go to the doctor for your heart. You stump your toe, you go get checked out for your toe. Why not? If you feel as though there's an imbalance of emotions, why wouldn't you? Because sometimes that trauma is so deeply rooted. It goes back to our childhood. If you think about it, some of the stuff we may have witnessed, some of the things that we have been a part of, some of the things we have seen that have not been addressed. And so you have to allow God to heal your heart. But also, because of the trauma is so deep and so deeply rooted, you need somebody to talk it out in layers, because it's so layered trauma. It's layered trauma. And I think the sister asked earlier about dating after the trauma. I really haven't dated, and that's been over 10 years. I try to date, so I really haven't had a real relationship, because I know for me, I'm still healing. Because what I don't want to do is not deal with my stuff and impose it on somebody else.
Mhm.
I don't want to give, because I want him to have all of me, and all of me without my baggage, because he's not my past, he's my future. And so I had to allow God to do what he needs to do in me to move on. And it's okay, because guess what? I lost myself in that relationship. I'll be honest. I lost myself. So now I'm rediscovering me. Rhonda, what do you like to do? Because a lot of times people like, I don't know. I don't know, whatever you want to do, because we want to please them. No, I want to go to this restaurant. I want to do this. And if he said, well, baby, I can afford that. Okay. Well, I mean, not that it's about money, but it's about, I can now treat myself. I can now get to love me, get to do my self-care, because now I no longer have a project. So that's what I think. I answered all your questions. I think I did.
You
But
did.
yeah, okay. All right.
Miss Renee.
Um, I think in the story I shared a lot. Um, and the healing, it takes time. It definitely takes time. There is no, you're going to get over it. No, there is some healing to be done. And that relationship was definitely, I would definitely consider he was bipolar. And then I went into a very narcissistic relationship. And that was manipulation written all over it. Okay. And God had to pull me out of that too. And now I'm just on a break. I'm on a whole hiatus, just enjoying life, enjoying my kids. Um, I mean, people say, how do you do a small business and run a family? I was like, actually, I have had harder days. I've had harder days. What I do online has nothing, it compares nothing to what I lived through and had to heal from and the people I dealt with. So, the manipulation, because people can get into your mind, and that's the thing, you really have to know who you're
Mm-hmm.
loving. You really do. Because manipulation it's very tricky. And sometimes you don't even know you're being manipulated until you finally wake up. And however
Mm-hmm.
you wake up, stay awake. Stay awake so you never have to be in that type of situation, because sometimes we do attract it again and again and again
Mm-hmm.
until we actually see. We got to see beyond the person that we're seeing, like their full character, how they treat people, how they treat their family, how, I mean, the history. It's like you need a whole resume. You need more than a few weeks to get to know somebody. You need months.
Exactly.
Okay, and before anything happened, and I'm gonna say that very loud and clear, before anything can happen, you got to really know this person. How you do that, that's going to be up to you. But I totally think there has to be a level of conversation, maturity, everything. But you really do have to be healed before you step into something else, because no telling what that is. No telling what issues they got, because some people don't even show you their issues. And I am not someone to fix anybody. I'm not a counselor. You gotta come together. You don't gotta be perfect. Just good to me, and but good to yourself. Good to yourself. Because sometimes that self-esteem is so low, but that's not what they show you. So you have to really be aware. I would say definitely aware of what you want, but be healed. Don't jump from this to that to this, because it's just going to look like that, and they're all going to look the same but different people.
Mm-hmm.
So you really do have to take care of yourself. I really needed God to help me heal, because I wasn't going to do it, and I was able to do the forgiving and do the healing, and it took time. And now, you know what, I feel like, because I can share the story. Before, if you asked me a year ago, Vernita, I would not have been able to. I know I wouldn't have. 2 years ago, for sure, I wouldn't have been able to. But I am grateful. God led me to you, Vernita, this platform, um, and I'm able to share without crying or being sad, or even I share to my daughter. I share, this is what happened, and it's not like, her dad was a bad person. He was a good person. He just was not for me.
Right.
And it's okay. And I'm okay with that. But you really do have to be awake. If you have any intuition that you're being manipulated, or are you being conned, are you being used, are you being hurt, and you have to wake up for yourself. No one can wake you up. No, nothing can wake you up until you say, enough is enough. This is foolishness. I deserve better. I'm worthy of everything. Why not? So I just take my life one day at a time. I'm very grateful every time I wake up in the morning. So, especially in the pandemic. So I am just grateful every day, and you know, uh, yeah, that's pretty much it.
So for me, my healing started when I started. Um, I got therapy, I got counseling, and I began to talk more about what had happened. I addressed a lot of things that had happened. I think one of the things that really, when I started the organization, I remember one of my aunts coming to me and saying, "We already knew."
Mm,
Um, And I knew a lot of people knew, because it had got to a point where I was constantly calling the police.
Mm.
Um, and one of my aunts had a scanner. So she was always able to tell my parents the sheriff was on the way to your daughter's house. I never understood how they knew, you know, but they did. But I always had a calling over my life. And I remember talking to my mom, and, I was telling her, I was like, but, I don't think I want to do that, and through dreams or whatever, God was like, open the organization. I'm like, I don't like telling people my business. I don't even like talking to people. Now you want me to go out and do what? Like, I was a very secret person. Like, my business was my business. I dealt with it on my own, but I didn't realize trying to deal with it my way was keeping me hurt, keeping me bound. And when I started telling my story, that was part of my healing process. I did not realize that because of the calling on my life, God was allowing me to spread awareness, because this is not just something you do, but this is like evangelism as well. Um, God was a major part of my life, but I knew that I had work to do as well. And when He allowed me to go place to place and start telling my story and get the counseling and get the therapy, and understand that even getting that didn't make me less than a person. Because truth be told, in our communities, as Ms. Rhonda stated, when you get in therapy, when you get counseling and you go and you tell somebody, well, I got to go see my psychiatrist, I got to go see my therapist. It's like, oh, well, you're going to be labeled. You're going to be labeled as retarded. You're going to be labeled as this. But in reality, you're not labeled as anything. If you don't go get the help that you need, you're going to explode. And then you're going to truly be labeled, because it affects your mental health. And that was one of the things. I was angry. I was just really angry. And for me, like screaming and yelling, I can't. That's one thing that I still cannot deal with. Now I can scream and yell at you, but I can't stand anybody to scream and yell at me. Um, and so I remember my husband now, and I dating. And I remember one time I got really angry and I started to argue. This joker got his coat, put his shoes on, and he left. Now, after being in abusive relationships, you don't just leave. I need you to respond back. I need you to talk back. But he wouldn't. And he told me, he said, in order for our relationship to progress, you need help, because you want to take out on me what everybody else has done. I'm not that person. He said, but what I will do is make sure you get the help you need. And I was like, no, I want you to argue back. I didn't want to hear what he had to say. But so to have his support when I went through, um, and it was certain things, I was called a bitch in all my relationships, that when I would hear that word, it would trigger anger in me. And so that was one of the things, when he would listen to his music, if I was around, he made sure that wasn't in there. So that helped. Um, he, he treated me as a queen, and he still do. Out of 14 years, he has treated me awesome. But he went through therapy with me, to make sure, he could learn things that would help when I was getting, overboard. So I think that helped me a lot. God was the number one source. But the Bible also say faith without works is dead. So if you're not doing anything, you know, to get your healing, if you're not doing anything um to help yourself, you can pray all day, and I could say this as being a minister. If you're gonna pray about it and keep picking it back up, you know, you're not gonna be healed. Um, we have people pray all the time, and for me, one of the things, I have a prayer team every morning and every night. And one of the things for me, I tell them be specific, because if I just go and pray, oh God, please don't let him beat me today, I might get that. But when 12 p.m. come and he strike me, it's like I pray, but you said today, and that's what God gave you. So um with me, like being very specific with God, with what I ask him for, and being very specific, like with my healing. I know I need healing. And I think this year, God allowed me and my first abuser to be in the same place, so he can show me my growth. He could show me my strength. Um, and I was uneasy. I can honestly say I was uneasy. When my daughter said, well, my dad is coming. Now, if I never prayed before, I prayed real hard, because I said, God, let him find an excuse not to come. And so when God still allowed him to come, it wasn't that I felt that God failed me, but God had to show me, listen, I got you. You pray for healing. This is part of the healing process. So we're not always like the arena God puts us in. But as long as we know that he's right there and we can push through, I'm a strong believer, and I'll tell anybody, I love the Lord, but I'm not going to tell you to stay in an abusive relationship. I'm not that person to come talk to you. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to offer you. But I will say this, and I know you ladies can probably agree. If a person comes to you and tell you what they're going through, you can offer advice. Most of the time, they just need you to listen. You gather the information and then you present them with a way that can help them. Now, they're not going to leave the first instance. Statistics say it takes at least 7 times before you leave your abuser. And we have to realize some people are going through abuse because of things that happened in their childhood. And they buried it deep down on the inside. And now it's resurfacing. And it's like, well, how do I get past this? It's not as easy as people think. And one of the viewers asked, has everyone forgiven their abusers?
I have. I had to. First, that's just if a Christian forgives, so that you should be forgiven. But for me, it was deeper than that. I've had one abuser come apologize to me and ask me for, forgiveness. That has happened as well. They got their life right with God, and they had to come back and get their life right with everybody else they did wrong too in that process. And for me, luckily, I was one of those people, and that provided me some form of healing as well. For the situation with that particular abuser. Um, this year, my mother married my one of my abusers, the man that molested me. This year is the first year I had Thanksgiving with both of them around. More so on the relationship that I was building with my mom, or trying to build with my mother. Um, it was in that moment this past Thanksgiving that I knew I was healed. Um, and it was a test for myself on that healing to make sure that, I was doing the work as well, and how it was going to impact me. And being in the same room with him was hard, but it was a breath of fresh air because I knew that I was in control in that moment. And I had my own control back. I had control of my emotions. I had control of my joy and my happiness in the moment of still having my mother present. And that definitely was important to me too, to know that I healed, because this is the same person. I wouldn't step in my mother's house because she still lives in the
Mm.
same home. A lot of the memories, I wouldn't to her home. But the fact that I was able to invite them in mine, into my space, according to how I wanted it to go. And it went well. But to have I forgiven all of them? Yes. I always say it's the spirit, not the person. And that's how I just want to look at it and move forward, because people know now what they do. Forgive them, for they know not who they do. Touch not my anointing and do my prophet no harm. They didn't know who they were creating in the process. And, I thank God that I was able to forgive them, because it created so many opportunities for myself, and that's important. Forgiveness is important. You can't hold blessings if you're too busy holding grudges. And I'm going to end with that.
Miss Rhonda?
So for me, um, I said I had forgiven until I received a letter from him from prison. Oh, I was so angry. So you put on that little church face and like, "Ah, yes, I'm blessed and highly favored. Yes, I've forgiven." And then there comes testing time. And so the testing time for me was the letter. And I got so angry. And I actually was talking to one of my godmothers, and she said to me, she said, Rita, I said, can you believe this joker wrote me? I was just going off. And she said, I know he wrote you because he wrote me first and told me he was going to write you. And I was like, what you know? I don't kind of attitude with her. I'm just going to be honest. But she said, now go back, read that letter to me. And it was something about when I slowed down enough to read it. That's when I was able to completely forgive. So now it was no longer with my mouth, but in my heart, I have forgiven. And not only him, but his family members that took me through stuff. So yeah, yes, I forgive it. And what the sister said earlier, it's like you holding a fist. When you hold
Mhm.
your fist, you can't get anything in. But once you release it, blessings now flow. And so, yeah, I forgive it. Thank you, Lord.
Renee, have you forgiven your abuser? You're on mute.
The answer is yes. I've totally forgiven, and it feels great. It feels great. Um, it took a minute. It took a minute. It took years. It took years. And like I said, I really had to ask God to help me and intervene in the healing, because I couldn't do it by myself. I literally I couldn't. Physically I couldn't. Mentally I couldn't. Spiritually I wouldn't. So it's definitely a process, and there is no recipe to healing. There is none. You take it one day at a time. You let go of some things. You forgive the person. You forgive yourself. And day by day, you get stronger and stronger. That's the only thing I could tell anybody. My recipe is it was personal for me to forgive. I was like, I'm not gonna get anywhere if I don't really forgive. I mean, sincerely forgive. And it wasn't until I came home back to California, and we had a conversation. We had conversations when I was in UAE too, mostly about our daughter and things like that. And there was one specific conversation, and he was like, "I really," in the terms of, "Thank you for raising our daughter." And I can't tell you how that it just did something for me. It did something for me because I knew the work I put into my kids. I knew the amount of love I give them. I'm not just I'm financial everything, but the
Mm-hmm.
love I give. So when he said that, because we've had a lot of conversation like, oh, she won't grow up to respect you, shoot, da da da. So a lot of the mental stuff was related to my our child, right? So when he said that to me, it helped in so many ways, and it closed the chapter because he was hurting. And before that conversation, he was saying that he was passing, and he felt like no one loved him. And I told him, I loved it. I love you, even though all that stuff happened. I will forever love you. And that's what I'm saying in terms of the self-esteem. We all have to find people that are already love themselves, not looking for love, love themselves, and us as well as ourselves. We have to love ourselves. He did pass about 2 months after that conversation. Um, so when I say I'm so glad I forgave him, I am so glad I forgave him. And and in his passing, I was thinking too about regretting. Maybe we could have made it work. And my daughter was like, no, no. And I just remember our friendship now. I remember before the relationship. I remember when he was with our daughter in the hospital. I remember those things. And I asked God, rest in maybe rest in peace, you know. But I hold on to the good memories because the hard ones are hard, and I'm not going there with myself. I'm not fighting that battle with myself. It's done. It's done. And I just like I said, it's one day at a time. No regrets. One foot in front of the other, and just that's it. I don't know. Like my journey is different, and all of our journeys are different. And the women who are watching this, your journey is different. But when you wake up to understanding your self worth and how important you are, there's nothing going to keep you in a bad relationship, a battering a relationship. Someone is abusing you and hurting you. There's nothing. Not even my children would have kept me in a relationship. I'm so sorry if it gets to the point where you're just beating me down, like I got to go. So yeah, so I did forgive and I healed, and I'm grateful. God, I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it alone. I wouldn't have done it alone. And my family didn't know. And likely my family doesn't know unless they're following my page. But it was my journey, my story, and now I'm just moving forward. That's it.
As far as me, forgiving, honestly, um, a couple of them have asked for forgiveness, and I forgave them. That is something that God is still dealing with me on. Um, because, I'm transparent and I'm real. Some of them was different levels of hurt. And to just come live and say, yeah, I'm truly forgiven. I'm not. I haven't truly forgiven them. I can't help somebody else if I can't be real. Um, my first abuser and my last abuser, I haven't truly forgiven them. My first abuser, I feel like the trauma that my children have suffered, and to see that cycle, the generational curse relived, um, has caused me to to be angry sometimes because I feel like if they dealt with their generational curses, it wouldn't have transpired into my daughter. Um, and so I'm asking God to help me with that. And, that's something that I just have to be real about. Um, because I feel like it affected my children's mental health. Um, and not just theirs, but mine's to a certain extent. The ones that came to me and asked me for forgiveness, I was like, oh, okay. But one thing when they came to me to ask me for forgiveness, so what am I forgiving you for? Because I wanted them to address what they done. Anybody could just come to you and say, I want to move on with my life. Can you forgive me? What am I forgiving you for? And when they was able to answer and just say, I grew up, whatever. I don't care about that. I just want you to address what you've done to me, and um, I'm a real straightforward person, and that's just how I am. My life is an open book. And a couple of them came forth after I opened the organization. So my next question to them was, are you just apologizing because you're scared that I'm gonna mention? Oh baby, I'm gonna mention what you done. I don't have to mention your name. So if you're apologizing because you're scared I'm gonna mention your name, don't apologize if it's not coming from the heart. What is it that you've done? Because for years you denied it, because hey, I would press charges. And I remember one of the guys, his mom was like, well, the next time he hits you, have him arrested. Okay. So when I do have him arrested, I had to deal with her and the sister. Why did you have, baby? Do you not remember the conversation last week? It came out of your mouth. If he do it again to have him arrested, oh, okay. You thought it was a joke? So, I did. I asked him, like, hey, what is it? Let's make sure, that I'm forgiving you for the right thing. Because in your mind, it might be, hey, I just call you Little Debbie and you got upset. No, let's go deep into the conversation. Because when you want me to forgive you, I want to make sure what I'm forgiving you for. And for me, I'm just that person. I'm gonna keep it real. So um I am praying and asking God to work with me because two of them is hard. It's real hard. And one will never address what he has done. But so I'm still working on that. So and I have to keep it real. And the only way to truly, truly help anybody is, for me to heal and, and part of your healing is forgiving. I know people don't want to address that, but that's the truth. Um, so ladies, one last question from the audience. They said, so now how do you identify yourself after the pain? Anybody could tune in.
I just see myself as a, victorious leader, assertive outreach worker, a victim's advocate, just trying to heal others. My identity, I had to, for one, I still have the last name from my marriage, but and that used to be one of my day to day traumas until I took ownership of that name and made it to the name that I have. I'm called till today. So many people out here in the community, it's like streets. I'm out here really doing the work to help other victims of crime and survivors of crime and survivor families still create atmospheres for them to heal on a day-to-day basis. I find my identity in doing that work. I find that fulfillment in doing that work of healing the same people that needs to be reached, like I needed to be reached. Yeah. My identity of just being strong and confident in who I am and what I know, knowing that I'm loved by God and I'm who He said I am, and that I'm prosperous. I am the head and not the tail. I make sure that my identity is I'm not called outside of my name. I am Shayna Miss Streets. Somewhere in that formation you can find it, but I'm not crazy. I'm not dumb. Things like that. I make sure that everyone knows who I am when they're speaking to me. That and I stand firm on that. That when I walk in the room, God shows that light that is already identified. And that's me living after the pain, no longer silent, no longer shut
Mhm.
up, being able to express myself and my emotions and being put in value to how I feel, because that's important too. And those are things that get lost when you lose your identity in relationships. Your emotions become valueless and they don't become addressed. And it's just being firm in that and knowing that you have a voice and that you are victorious, you are fearless, and you're phenomenal. And that's who I am. That's how I identify myself after all the pain that I've went through. I'm not what I went through. I overcame what I went through. I'm an overcomer, and that's how I like to be identified.
Miss Renee, the question is, how do you identify yourself after the pain?
I would say courageous. That's one thing about me. I am very resilient. Um, I decided, I think it was 2 years after I had left, I was moving to the Middle East, and I had no idea I was going to be living there that long. I didn't think I was going to be. I only was going there for 2 years, and God had me there for 10, only to understand that it was He needed me there, and because as soon as I saw those kids to teach, I was like, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. Um, but I would totally say I am courageous. I look at those days and to walk away, to leave the keys to a new home, I was like, I'm out of here. You ain't keeping me here. I am so sorry. I know God is gonna bless me with another house one of these good days. Right. And then he blessed me with the Middle East, and I have great memories there. Because I do remember a conversation we had maybe 2 years prior to, maybe three, maybe four. I can't remember. I'm not good with the years, ladies, so forgive me. But I was thinking about teaching abroad. He said, "You would never teach abroad. We will never go teach abroad." I was like, "We'll see about that." And then I had no idea it was going to be the Middle East. Like I said, I lived in New York when the World Trade fell. I saw it come down. So, the Middle East was not something I wanted to go to, but it just happened that I put my application and I was going through the process and I ended up there. It was a great 10 years, great 10 years. I learned a lot, but I met my narcissist there. I definitely met him there, and I left him right there. And I said, you know what? This time around is about myself. I'm very resilient about taking care of myself, my heart, who I am. And I want my children to understand you don't always have to be strong. I'm not a big person on being strong. I may seem that way, But when I need help, I ask people for help more than I ever did before. But I realize I am very resilient, and I like that about me. You know, I like the woman I'm becoming or I'm being every day. Like it's one day at a time for me. There is no perfection. Like I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just trying to be myself. I'm in competition with nobody. Um, and I just take it one day at a time. I'm very simple. I like some nice, good food. I like a nice movie. I like a nice cafe. But that hurt and that pain, I would not want to ever see that again. And I wouldn't want that for anyone. And anyone that came to me that asked me about what, their options, you have options. You have options. And there's so many organizations. That's one thing I never tapped into organizations. I didn't know. I just felt like I was dealing with this by myself and I'm getting the heck out of here. And I'll pick up the pieces as I go. I'll be in that room until I pass my test. I'll be in this room until I get a better job. I'll be in this room and that's exactly what happened. I ended up renting a one bedroom. I think my credit it was okay. It was decent. And, and I took baby steps. I ended up getting a truck. I didn't have that before. So different things started happening. And then the job in UAE came but I am over the wrong people. Like you're wrong, you're just wrong. Like you got to get yourself fixed. I am not fixing anyone. So sorry. But I'm resilient about taking care of myself. So that's it. That's it.
Miss Rhonda.
And so, how I identify myself after the pain, I would say evolving. So, I'm evolving to who God has called me to be. And one of the ways that I evolved in doing that is I started a mentoring program with a local high school um, called Her Pride. And what that do is that allows me to pour into young girls to help them identify their worth. Um, Help them to identify just how important what they bring to the kingdom, not only what they bring to the kingdom but also identify what's a healthy relationship, what's not healthy. I think it's important for us at a young age to begin to help our girls recognize toxic relationship, whether it's the same sex, females, or whether it's the opposite sex. And so that's one of the ways that I do is mentor and pouring into them and help them to realize that glass ceiling can be broken. And so that's how the word I would use is evolving.
Awesome. So how I identify myself after the pain, I am an advocate. I am a overcomer. I am victorious. I am courageous. I don't allow what I went through to determine who I am. So, my favorite scripture comes out of Joshua 1:1. It tells us to be strong and courageous. And for me, I stand firm on that. There's been so many oppositions, especially starting an organization and talking about domestic violence. I often hear, I don't want to hear about that mess. I often hear, that's stupid. If you heal, why you talking about it? Well, and I love when the church folks, and I always say everybody in church ain't saved. And everybody that go to jail is not a criminal. So I like to put that out there. But when they come to me, and it's so funny when they say that, and I say to them, it's dumb until it happens directly in your family. It's dumb until your daughter come, her eyes swole, and you can't recognize your own child. It's dumb until you get that phone call from the police saying that we had to rush your child to the hospital. So if it's dumb now, when you get that call, is it going to be dumb then? And a lot of times they say, well, I don't want to talk. I don't want to put that on my daughter. We don't know what our children are doing. And one of the hardest things is your child to call you crying, saying this is happening. See, and I could tell them I know that feeling from experience. So the reason I do what I do is because I don't want anybody to go through what I've been through. I want them to be able to push through and say, this is not the life for me. So I really thank you ladies for taking time out of your day. We're going to answer one more question with the three of us. And then it says, in your different professions, does what happened to you all affect you in your careers? Honestly, for me, um, I don't like loud screaming. So, and this is crazy. God placed me in a daycare, and I'm like, children scream. So I said, God, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this, because the screaming, I'll catch myself sometimes. And some of them do it because it's the funniest thing to them. But it do have an effect. And one thing I've learned that no matter what profession I was in, because I done mental health, I done CPA, and now I'm doing daycare. But one of the things I've learned in any profession that I am in, that when I feel my temper rising, to remove myself. So I'll do my breathers. I'll do my, everything that I learned through through my therapy. I'll take all that and adjust myself. And sometimes, no matter what career you're in, sometimes you have to remove yourself, because if not, it can have an effect on your day. So, but overall, what I've been through taught me to look for other signs in my babies, in my adults, in whatever, whoever I'm working with, to see if there's signs of abuse or neglect. So for me, um, the abuse has opened my eyes to look far beyond the surface. And sometimes just looking, but body language, attitude can tell you a whole lot. So for me, it has taught me to look beyond the surface. And actually, the pain that I went through was for somebody else. So I can help somebody else. Miss Renee?
I was a school teacher, and that was my profession for years. And I was always, and it's amazing because he will put you in places. And there was a school, and there was a student, and I saw something. He's brilliant, he's a brilliant student. But I saw something, and I know what it looks like. It's fear, it's anxiety, it's depression, and if kids come sad, kids come. There's too many. It's too many. It was just too much. So I went to the principal and I said, "This is. I think we need to look into this situation." And it took courage for me to do that. But I was like, "This child is not going to be harmed." You know. Unfortunately, he was I guess the father saw that someone saw something, and it was intuition for me. As a teacher, we have to go beyond just the teaching. These are young children. And at the time, I think the student was grade two. Maybe I think it was grade two. It was a long time ago, but um, the father removed him from the school. So it's just we do have to look beyond the surface. And I think as a teacher, for me, I think I was just supposed to be in this situation. Like, even people, strangers, will come talk to me, and I'm more empathetic. I understand women will come and talk and share their story. They need to talk to someone. I wasn't vocal when I was in a situation. you know
Mhm.
um I wasn't like, if I told one or two friends, I can't remember. because I would just keep it inside. Um, so, and like I had a lot of years of shame. I had a lot of years of shame because this doesn't happen. Especially, my family is from the West Indies. Everything is it's like double time. No, it's real hush. It's like real hush hush. So, um, yeah, I definitely see beyond what is in front of me. So I would say the same, Bernita. I would say like either teachers or any coworkers, I saw something or felt something or they said something in a certain way. I wanted them to let them know you can come and talk to me, because it takes guts to share anything with people. So yeah, that would be mine.
Miss Rhonda.
For me, I would say that going through it made me more sensitive. Um, but also I would say vulnerable. So at sometimes like when I had like a male boss, um, when he didn't respond, it reminded me or it triggered some things of the past relationship where he didn't. I asked him a question, he didn't respond. So it was like that kind of abandonment thing. So I had to get counseling for that. Um, but I would say also it made me sensitive because like you two, it made me it was almost like I was an advocate at the job, which was so crazy. My boss, when it was one girl that had went through it, she said, "Hey, I need for you to come in my office," and she would have us in there. And being that I work with the local domestic violence shelter here, I was connected with resources. Um, so that was good. And I actually had a male that come to me that was dealing with that in shame, a coworker, um, where his wife, and it was just going through a divorce, but really not divorcing because of the child, but she used that as manipulation, as we talked about. So I had to let him know it's okay because men go through it too. Thank you for being that voice for men. Um, and then just directed him in the right way. So I think it made me more sensitive and more to be an advocate and how to talk to people, because sometimes as when you go through domestic violence, you don't need anybody else to talk down to you. So sometimes I used to train and I used to go behind them and be like, how you doing today, you know and that was just spark a conversation, and it was like, well, how do you have your joy? And then you just go in conversations and they end up telling you what's going on. So I would say it made me sensitive. First of all, it made me vulnerable when I didn't get the reaction I want. Also made me sensitive, and then it made me be an advocate.
Well, ladies, we thank you, ladies, so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Thank you, ladies, for the hardest thing is always reliving what you have been through. But I want to say to each of you, I thank you for your courage. I thank you for just joining in to bring awareness on such a touchy subject. As I stated in the beginning, domestic violence is just domestic violence is a pandemic within itself. Um, as we know, love doesn't hurt, but we have to bring awareness. I mean, truly bring awareness to help those that are going through and don't see a way out. So the strength and the courage that you ladies have taken on tonight, it is greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. Also, if anybody need information about our organization, the the website is below, and it is North Carolina Breaking the Silence wixsite.com /BTSDV. You can find out all the information you need to know about our organization. Um, you can also follow our Facebook page at Breaking the Silence on Domestic Violence Inc., our Instagram page at BTSDV, and our Twitter page, which is Vernita Howard 3. And again, ladies, thank you so much. So, right before we close out, I want you to encourage someone that's going through. So, I'm going to let them give you information on, well, not information, but to encourage you. So, if there is a woman or a male that is going through domestic violence, we have a few words for you. I'm going to start with you, Miss Rhonda.
So one of the things I would say, there's so many that I could say out, but one of the things I want to leave with you is that you're stronger than you think, and you do have options. And so reach inside that inner strength within yourself to move forward. You can, just like I survived, you can survive as well. So I love you. And if nobody's told you that today, just know you are loved and that you have the power to move forward.
Miss Renee.
I would say the same. I would say find that strength in you. Find the strength of understanding your worth and how beautiful you are on the inside and the outside, and that you're worthy and you are just amazing already. You know, um, don't blame yourself. Don't put yourself to blame. Be okay with finding the resources that you need and to make the call that you need for yourself. Please, that's what I would say to whoever is paying attention to this.
I think she's having technical difficulties. I know I can't hear. Can you hear Miss Rhonda?
No, I can't. I can't.
Okay.
I think she was dropping them nuggets though.
Yes. Okay, guys, I was trying to see if it was going to let her come back in, but nevertheless, it did not. I will say to any man or woman that's facing or going through domestic violence, you are not alone. You do not have to be alone. You can reach out to any of us at any time to get the help that you need. Not only that, if you can find that one person that you can trust, build you a safety plan. If they say that you can bring clothes there, do it. Make sure you gather all your important documents for you and your children. That is very important when leaving a domestic violence situation. Also, make sure that, and I will tell you this, I am good with you getting a protection order. Do understand that a protection order is only a piece of paper. So you will have to change some things about you. You can always reach out to my organization. There is somebody willing to answer your calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Also, guys, tune in because next week our topic is ask first. No means no. We will be talking about sexual assault, sexual harassment, sexual tendencies in the workplace. We will be coming to you raw, spreading awareness on sexual assault. Domestic violence is not just physical, it is all forms of abuse. So, with that being said, you guys be safe. As the ladies told you, if nobody's told you they love you, we do, and there's nothing you can do about it. Remember, love doesn't hurt. Your safety, your mental health, your psychological being, your mental stability is very important. So, if that means to get out of that situation, reach out to any of us and we will help you. It's not about what organization help you, it's about you getting the help. and we can say that we saved another life on today. So, with that being said, we want to thank you, thank you, thank you for tuning in and being a part of our show. You all be blessed. And remember, if nobody told you they love you, we do.